You were at my side all along.
But Sleepy, we're well into
April. It's April now. I know this channel focuses on Souls-like games, but I thought it might be fun to share what else I've been up to because I know I come off as a super sweaty Sigma Soul Slayer, but the fact is I do enjoy a lot of other genres. Keep in mind that these are just my opinions, and the games aren't sorted into any real order. If that sounds like fun, here's every game I played in January and February, or you can skip to whatever interests you. If you've tuned into the live streams, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, you'll know that I've been playing a lot of Black Myth Wukong. I actually put off buying and playing this game for a long time because I kept hearing a back and forth about how the combat was more similar to the recent God of War games than a Soulsborne game. As someone actively playing God of War and God of War Ragnarok in the lead up to the game's release, I have a large and inexcusable backlog, okay? Please don't judge me. This was kind of disheartening. While I loved both God of Wars, I was mostly there for the immaculate storytelling and the interactions between the fleshed out characters. I felt like the combat was often ripped out of the player's hands to do quicktime events, button mashing for damage, or aggressive cutscenes at arbitrary health levels. This isn't to say Wukong was immune to all of these things, but it didn't feel as egregious. I knew nothing about the Journey to the West story either, but that didn't stem my amusement or genuine surprise at each character and boss we were introduced to. I earnestly tried my best to explore as much as possible, but somehow I missed a bunch of content during my initial pass, which, for better, your entertainment, or worse, my mental health, made the game a whole lot more difficult. For example, I fought and won against the final boss of Chapter 4 without a critical item that skips his entire, much more difficult second phase. Even when chat taught me the error of my ways and begged me to return with them, I simply locked in and came out on top with one of the most satisfying victories I've had in a Souls-like game. Even when a game is a decade old, when it's this good, it demands a replay. And who am I to turn away from this timeless treasure? Bloodborne's combat and atmosphere is so iconic that I had to get that fix early in the year. I will say that character creation leaves a bit to be desired, but emulating the game on PC has come a long way, so any graphics or frame rate issues that I could have complained about have probably already been dealt with. This time, I tried to do a blood tinge build, only to find out that there are just 2 real blood tinge weapons that appear so late in the game, you might as well be in New Game Plus before you get to have any real fun as a blood tinge build. That definitely put a damper on my enthusiasm for my newest playthrough, so send me your favorite builds so I can be more than just a Kirkhammer simp. Democracy has never felt so good, Simulator. I really don't have much to say about this game that hasn't already been said. It's just one of those easy games to hop on with the squad. Last Epoch is in the same vein of games as the likes of Path of Exile and Diablo, which isn't usually my thing. I mean, I literally fell asleep pressing the same buttons over and over again as I pumped the difficulty as high as I could go in Diablo 3, only to wake up and have no more enemies on the screen. I haven't played a massive amount of Last Epoch yet, but I appreciate that it seems to respect my time more than others in the genre, since you can build almost every piece of gear exactly as you need for your build, instead of grinding for that 0.0002% chance at a single helmet or whatever. Not that I really need a grind, since I discovered the beam! On a similar note, I often find mobile games fail to hold my attention for long, but Arknights is the one exception. Is it because I love throwing money away as I try to get my favorite PNG? No. I am one of the most steadfast free-to-play gamers out there. Is the story so incredibly written it leaves you wanting more? Also no. The story is definitely there for those who want to know as much as possible about the world and the characters that inhabit the spaces between catastrophes, but I lost interest around Chapter 4 or 5. Honestly, I think the gameplay as a tower defense mobile game is just incredibly solid and diverse. I've watched far better players than me clear hordes of enemies with ease using nothing but the operators people tend to leave at the bottom of the barrel. Events and chapters have the widest range of gimmicks I've seen in the genre that make you think about how to play around them to your benefit instead of just being punished. Do you want to be involved in activating every operator's unique skills? Deploying retreating units as the situation calls? Or are you a set and forget player that focuses on raw, overwhelming power to defeat each wave? The game can be as easy or as challenging as you make it to some degree, and I love that once I use all my energy, I can be done with it for the day. Now I know what you're thinking. Sleepy, isn't this another Gunnar Gacha game? Dear viewer, you would like to think that. And it is! But this is a good Christian Minecraft channel, and we don't play for that. We definitely don't do that.
What were you just watching?
So if it isn't a Gunnar Gacha, what is it? Well, It's a lot of things, actually. I was both surprised and confused by how many things this game is. What most people will point to is the hack and slash combat that makes up the meat and potatoes of the game, using a 3-person team to beat the ever-loving shit out of both regular thugs and monstrosities called ethereals in these time-space anomalies called hollows. I think. I wouldn't know, because really it feels like 5 to 7 mini games in a trench coat trying to get into your wallet because the game acting as the head is so pretty. I mean, why play the story when there are such prestigious side games like Knockoff Snake, Knockoff Vampire Survivors, Knockoff Subway Surfer, and Knockoff Fall Guys? Cult of the Lamb has an interesting mix of gameplay elements, from managing your followers' needs to roguelike combat, all wrapped in the bow of a cutesy horror style. For me, the combat was just interesting enough, with 6 weapons and several curse variations, along with tarot cards for more minute changes that prevented each glorious crusade from being a slogfest. Even on the second hardest difficulty from the get-go, the hardest part of the combat was swapping between control schemes, since I was playing Wukong and Elden Ring at the same time. Meanwhile, the base management sim got stale pretty quickly, with me constantly assuming a janitor role and cleaning poop that my delightful followers pumped out faster than any meaningful work they were assigned to. Thankfully, progress meant buildings to automate more processes so you could focus on slaying sinners. My only real complaint was that the game kept feeding me my least favorite weapon, the gauntlets, and I didn't even know that the blunderbuss was in the game until the penultimate boss or something. I chalked it up to RNGesus and kept at it anyway. Back to honest-to-goodness Souls-like games. I streamed the entirety of the first Berserker Kazan demo in a single sitting. While some people might dislike the anime-style, cel-shaded graphics, I think both the anime style and cel-shading techniques have come a long way to create something that looked as incredible as this. Perhaps the most offensive thing about this demo, that may or may not be in the full release, was the difficulty option choice. There were only 2 options, story and normal, or something like that, but it still felt like a slap to the face. Of course, we had to play the harder of the 2, and, in complete transparency, it wasn't very challenging. Maybe that will change when it comes out in March, or later this month, but we cruised through the content without much resistance until the Blade Phantom at the end of the demo. Even he only took a handful of attempts though. Elden Ring will probably always be in my rotation of games for the foreseeable future. There's so much to do and so many ways to change how you play, it can be a fresh experience every time. If your idea of a fun time is standing still in a corner, boy, do I have the game for you. A friend recommended this game to me after watching a Seth video, and I gotta tell you, not playing a game has never been so enjoyable. Path of Acra is a bare-bones roguelike that relies almost entirely upon your ability to make ridiculously overpowered, synergistic builds. On your game turn, you can do exciting things like stand still, take a step in the visually stunning world, attack an enemy, or pray to your chosen god, who will inevitably ignore you and leave you face down in the mud. There are a bunch of skills, a few stats to level, and equipment to push you down your chosen damage path until you meet a hard counter to your build that just waggles its finger in your face and dunks on you like NBA star Dikembe Mutombo. Of all the successful runs I've done, I think all but one involved me sitting in my chair holding the spacebar to stand still until everything in the room I just entered dies by itself or is overwhelmed by the sheer number of summoned allies, hell-bent on destroying whatever stands between me and the next door. 10 out of 10 would stand still again.
It was the best of times. It was the worst.
Oh, come on, there's no way he sniped me. Probably the most competitive and simultaneously toxic game I played in January. This is the one that I usually get roped into playing with the boys before I carry their sorry asses. Or do absolutely nothing helpful. It's a coin toss, really. If you don't know what Valorant is about, let me simplify it for you. Bullshit, teammates suck, FF at round 5, GG easy. Congratulations, you are now the average Valorant player. Dredge is vastly different from all the other games on this list, but it has one of my favorite things, fishing mini games. I always say, if your game has a fishing mini game, it's at least 20% better than if it didn't. While you play as a simple fisherman, it becomes quickly apparent that something isn't quite right with the people and the area. Creepy, unexplained lights, mysterious fog, and lurking shadows create an uneasy atmosphere as you uncover a deeper storyline. My one piece of advice if you play the game is to explore more at night and take larger risks, something the characters tell you constantly not to do. I practically finished the game playing it safe before being spooked by anything out on the murky water, and I think I enjoyed it less as a result. Hoping to expand my repertoire of completed 2D Souls-like and Metroidvania titles, I streamed Blasphemous toward the end of January and into February. Unfortunately, my expectations may have been my downfall, and I ended up finishing the game begrudgingly. While the brutal backdrop and art style of the game were right up my alley, I did not enjoy my experience. I felt like the combat was extremely slow and repetitive, even as you unlocked new techniques, and the dodge slide mechanic failed to achieve its purpose. More often than not, when I tried to slide past an enemy, I ended up getting hurt instead simply for touching their model. Projectiles could sometimes be deflected, sometimes destroyed, or had to simply be avoided, and there was no clear distinction between them. Certain regular mobs in between bosses were disproportionately strong, easily robbing you of half of your health from a single attack. Keep in mind that I explored about 90% of the entire map and completed 3/4 of the entire content, at least of the base game, so it felt unreasonable to be struggling so much between boss fights when I made the effort to upgrade my version of the Penitent one. This February, last month, sees the release of Monster Hunter Wilds, the newest mainline entry to the Monster Hunter series, and ever since I got a taste of the open beta, I've been eagerly awaiting the full release. While I waited, I got back into Rise with a buddy who hasn't played much Monster Hunter before. You might ask why Rise and not World. The handler is an unparalleled amount of annoying in World, and the unskippable cutscenes before a friend can join you in a hunt as you play through the story is extremely cumbersome. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, and subscribe while you're here. It really helps me out.